What attracted you to tie-dyeing in the first place?
The colors. I don't know if you're familiar with Reiki, but it's all about energy and energy healing and chakras. Everything has an aura and a color representation. There's something to me that is just really cool to be able to feel something, put a color to it, and then put it on like a sweatshirt. I'm having an intention when I'm doing it. When you are a Reiki practitioner or when you do energy, everything you do, that energy is going into it. Even you, if you're doing a podcast and you love it and you're talking to a guest that you're really passionate about, you're going to give it so much energy that
Yeah.
that's the kind of energy it's going to attract. So I just do that, but I do it with tie dye. Even now that I've been doing it for a while, and honestly, it was like a way for me to like energetically work through things. And then it
Yeah.
became a business.
Welcome to the Spear and Clover podcast, the show where military mindset meets the spirit of the puppy. I'm your host, Jason Skisick, the entrepreneurial evangelist, and each week I bring you the stories of visionaries who see the world as it could be and can't help but take action. If you're enjoying these episodes, please take a moment to subscribe, like, and review. This is the best way to stay in the loop when we drop new content. Don't forget, the conversation continues in our brand new Spear and Clover community group. Check us out on Discord or follow the link in our bio to join this free group for entrepreneurs or wantrepreneurs. Hey, entrepreneurs. Does any of this sound familiar? Have you hired only A players, purchased the latest fire plays from so-called gurus, consistently almost become an elite organization, only to only have it result in talented employees regressing to mediocrity, tactical plays spiking performance and then fading away quickly, managers losing discipline and hunger and then either leaving or just coasting? Do you really think the difference between you and the industry leading team is a hire or a slick new marketing play? That's the same tired crap my Chicago Bears have shoved down my throat for over 30 years. Meanwhile, the Green Bay Packers have had two coaches in 50 years, they've had two quarterbacks in 20 years, and they're a contender every single year. Many leaders buy the best playbooks, draft the best talent, and they hire the best coaches, and year after year return without trophies. Who could blame them? Most business coaches, consultants, and so called gurus only sell tactical playbooks designed to provide a brief spike followed by a return to business as usual. The truth is, winning is simple. You need a clear North Star supported by managers and role players that have absolutely zero uncertainty about how they can help the team win today. Our simple program helps you become a dynasty organization from top to bottom. Dynasty Defined not only helps you structure a team that's capable of consistently winning championships, but once you do, they'll be writing their own playbooks, recruiting the best talent, and calling their own plays from the field. The choice is yours. Continue to hope that the next hire or brand new marketing play will finally solve all your problems, or commit to winning permanently, roll up your sleeves, and let's get started defining your dynasty. I am beyond proud to announce that we are now accepting applications for Dynasty Defined. Cohorts are limited to 6 entrepreneurs and they fill up quickly. So head on over to www.spearandclover.com now and claim your spot. I can't wait to see you on the inside. Most of the time, when you meet someone, you'll quickly hear about their life and how they hope to change it. Rarely do you meet someone who appears to be quite happy being themselves and keep doing so. This is the impression I first got when I met Jess Hein. Wait, Jess, is your name Jess Hein?
Yeah, it
Okay,
is.
just okay. I'm gonna restart this.
Okay.
Most of the time, when you meet someone, you'll quickly hear about their life and how they hope to change it. Rarely do you meet someone who appears to be quite happy being themselves and keeping doing so. This is the impression I got when I first met Jess Hein, when we first connected for a real conversation. To be clear, we both train Jiu Jitsu at the same gym, so we've been around each other a bit already. But when I asked Jess about what she does, and she does a lot, there was a very clear sense of satisfaction. This might be the secret to a life well lived. We'll see. A conversation that was started based upon her unique tie-dye company, Millie Byrd, quickly but casually shifted across topics like Reiki healing, behavior modification, and even surviving cancer. Today, I hope to share with you her unique and inspiring story, as well as why she seems so darn satisfied. Please welcome my friend, Jess Hein. Jess, how are you?
Hey, good. How are you?
I'm really good. Thank you so much for coming today. I'm really excited to get to know you a little better. Like I said in the intro, we know each other a little bit from doing
Yeah.
jujitsu together, but I'm really excited to get to know a little bit more about what you're going on because, like I said, you're super interesting and you have quite a bit going on. So, in your own words, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and where you're coming from?
I have a lot going on. That's a good way to put my explanation of who I am. I am a social worker. I've been in a lot of fields from child services to working with veterans, and then fell upon behaviorists, which just made sense to me because behavior and environment and what we do and why we do it is so black and white.
Hmm.
And so I've been doing that for almost 8 years. But while doing that, kind of went on my own healing journey and started being like a Reiki practitioner and have just dove in from that to tie dyeing during COVID, just working from home more and not really doing a lot and being having to stay home. I got kind of bored, and I'm a very energetic person that likes to stay busy.
Yeah.
We couldn't go to the gym, we couldn't do really a lot of stuff. So I started tie dyeing, and I wanted to do something where it wasn't just your like typical swirl, like Grateful Dead looking, which there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do something a little bit more boutique to kind of speak to other people that don't want to wear the swirl tie dye,
Hmm.
and people that like the swirl tie dye will also like to wear this kind of tie dye. So I started doing more boutique tie dye. So I do like crew necks and stuff, but then I started like ordering from vendors that like a small business boutique would order from, where you get packs of six, two of each size. And I just started looking for certain materials and things that were in style, and I just
Hmm.
started tie dyeing them. And so here we are, Millie Byrd, which is like such a random name, and a lot of people think my name is Millie because of that. um, but it's basically just my great aunt and my grandma's names put together. And, I come from a family of like strong ass women that I inspired me to be a strong ass woman. So why
Yeah.
not name it after two?
Uh-huh.
Um, so yeah, that's kind of a little bit of what I do. It's a lot. And then jujitsu on the side.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a lot in there, and I think we're going to start with the very first little piece of thread in that giant ball of yarn, which is tie dyeing. What attracted you to tie dyeing in the first place?
The colors.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with Reiki, but it's all about energy and energy healing and chakras. And our bodies are filled with different colors that mean different things, and our auras. And, everything has an aura and a color representation. So that kind of, there's something to me that is just really cool to be able to feel something, put a color to it,
Yeah.
and then put it on like a sweatshirt. And then, eh, you know, when I'm having an intention when I'm doing it, I mean, when you're a Reiki practitioner or when you do energy, everything you do, that energy is going into it. Even you, if you're doing a podcast and you love it and you're talking to a guest that you're really passionate about, you're going to give it, when you're editing it and when you're doing stuff, you're going to give it so much energy that
Yeah.
that's the kind of energy it's going to attract. So I just do that, but I do it with tie dye. And I
Yeah.
just sometimes, even now that I've been doing it for a while and I have a lot of like of the same customers that will, buy from me, I'll think about them when I'm tie dyeing,
Yeah.
and they'll end up with that tie dye. Like it's just like weird magic, but it's because it's the energy that's put into it. Or if you are really passionate about, or you're working on yourself and you're healing your sacral chakra, that's yellow. You might be more attracted to a yellow tie-dye than, and it doesn't have to be that deep, but for me, that's how I look at color. And that's how I really got into it. Honestly, it was like a way for me to like energetically work through things. And then it became a business. So
yeah, so it's so interesting because I like candidly, um, I'm not my mind does not engage well with sort of the more Eastern of like medicine and approaches and stuff. So whether it's, Reiki or, there's folks that are very into crystals, there's folks that are very into things like pyramids and copper and grounding and all of that stuff. But I have absolutely no problem understanding the idea of like, hey man, I put a lot of love into this, and because as a result of that, somebody else may be responding to that, right? I think that you could say that about music, you could say that about a podcast, you could say that about a movie or a photograph, right? There is such a thing as energy, and that energy for sure is picked up on by others. Now, I actually am completely agnostic, at least from where I'm sitting today. I'm open to change. But from where I'm
yeah.
sitting today, I'm agnostic to whether there's little gnomes pulling on strings of color or whether there's a god or aliens or, chakras or any of that stuff. I almost am agnostic to the input. I'm much more interested in the outcome, which is really cool tie-dye that people relate to, that people feel good when they're wearing, or in some cases it's a song and in some cases it's a painting, right? And so
Right.
what's important probably is how you feel when you're making it,
For
which
sure.
which translates to how they feel when they're wearing it,
Yeah.
right?
And
And
it
go
doesn't
ahead.
always have to be that deep either. It's
Right.
not like I'm constantly putting this like love, peace, and hippie energy into my tie-dyes. But at the same time, if I'm not in the mood to do it, it's gonna come out shitty. It just is. And
Yeah.
that's how it's been. Somebody might love it, but I'm not gonna
But you
probably.
know what your best work is, right? It's
Yeah.
what I always think about whenever people think magic isn't real, I just go, okay, well, have you ever gotten a haircut? And they'll say, yeah. And I'll say, well, how do you feel right after you get a haircut? Do you feel like you could walk up to that guy or girl and ask them for their phone number? Do you feel like you could take that job interview and get a yes? It's like, yeah, people
Yeah.
feel energetically different right after
Right.
they get a great haircut or right after they put on their favorite outfit. And so like, I don't know what that is, but I can tell you that it's not there. It's definitely something, right?
Right.
Um, and so okay, so then let's follow that thread. So what led you to Reiki?
So I was just kind of getting Reiki myself, going through some trauma and working through it. And then I just decided, wow, I really like the way this makes me feel. And I want to do the next step. So Reiki 1 is basically about you. So you go to the training and you learn about reading yourself, your energy, meditating, grounding exercises. It's really just about healing your inner child and healing you. So I did Reiki 1 and I loved it. And it was healing for me. You go on this, like, I was just telling somebody the story. You go through this like visualization meditation during Reiki 1, which like I didn't really believe in this until I started doing it. I
Sure.
kind of just fell into it and it worked for me. So I rolled with it. But you go through this like walking meditation and I'm sitting around a table of people and everyone's like, I opened the door and I saw this man in a robe and he told me to do this. And I opened the door and I saw this and they told me, and I didn't see anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so frustrated by that. And then I realized it's not about, I don't have to like one up everybody, like
Yeah.
this is my healing experience. And it doesn't matter if I'm not seeing what they're seeing. Like that's not what this is about, which was humbling for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up going out of it with Reiki 1 certified. And then I just loved it so much that I just kept going. So I did master level. So it's like Reiki 1, Reiki 2, and then there's master level. And it's really just learning to read the gifts that you have, which we all have, that intuitive, that gut feeling. And it's just really about learning to read that, and then learning what it means, like listening to our intuition,
Hmm.
which I think if you're been through something that's been traumatic, or it's hard for you to get through it, I think going the route of like learning your body and being in tune to your body is definitely a good way to go. It helped me. So, and I also think that with my going through breast cancer recently, if I didn't have certain things in place in my life prior, that I wouldn't have been so grounded during it, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, speak to that a little bit. So, before we get into specifically breast cancer, which I definitely, obviously, want to talk to you about,
Hmm.
what type of person do you recommend goes and tries Reiki?
What type of person?
Yeah,
Um, Anybody. I
anybody.
mean, I get people that lay down on my Reiki table that don't believe in it,
Yeah,
that husbands that their wives get it
sorry,
all the
us
time.
husbands.
And they're like, my husband needs this. And so they lay there and they're like, I'm just going to do this because my wife told me to. And then they get out of it and they're like, whoa, or some of them fall asleep and snore, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
Like, but honestly, anybody can do it. But I think for me personally, I see a lot of people that are confused with what their next step is in
Mm.
life, whether that be a career change or what they want to go to school for, or is this what I'm meant to do? And they really want to dive into their like inner child and their inner self. And we work through that. That's like
Yeah.
something that, meditating and grounding is really hard to learn to do. Reiki can help you kind of get there. Um, it's We're so quick in this world to go to the next thing,
Hmm.
or we want that instant gratification. And so for me, why I also love Reiki is that, and my sessions are only 30 minutes. A lot of
Hmm.
people do hours or hour and a half. I do 30-minute sessions because sometimes all you need is that 30 minutes to just close your eyes and not think about what you need to do in 30 minutes,
Hmm.
which is the hardest thing for everybody, for most people, for me, even. Obviously, I do 15 jobs, so I can't stay still.
Yeah, it's funny because first of all, I float. I talk about it all the time. I float. I try to float
Yeah.
once a month. It's been a little while since I have, but that's exactly it. I don't even care what the physiological or scientific reasons are. It's literally just put your phone down, stop thinking about what's going on today, and think and do anything else. And it's shocking the
Yeah.
positive stuff that has come out of there. Um, so are you talking with people? Are you talking them through something and they're silent? What is the experience like?
So you lay down on the table.
Mm.
I have crystals that
Cool.
I will put on their chakras, and it just kind of depends. I kind of read the energy when they lay down, of certain crystals and what's going to go on what chakra. And then you don't do anything. You just lay down. I put headphones on so that you can just listen to meditation music, and then I can just do my thing. So there's no like outside distraction noises. Um, and then it's just basically what Reiki is it's the energy from the universe
Yeah.
coming through me, through my hands, onto the person, and balancing the chakras. That's like the simplest way to explain it. And then when we get done, I will say, I always ask somebody how their experience was, because sometimes people aren't ready to hear fully maybe what I felt.
Hmm.
So I want to know kind of where they're at with their Reiki session. And then we just talk about, I'll be like, I was pulled to your root chakra, which that tells me that you need to ground yourself more, that you need to do meditations, that you need to slow down. Sometimes I'll get like flashes of things, and I'll be like, does a dragonfly mean anything to you? Like sometimes I don't
Wow.
even know what it means, honestly. um, that's why I think Reiki's so cool too, is because it sometimes doesn't still make sense to me. It's
Yeah.
just, I'm just speaking out what the world is telling me. Um, and then we just talk about it. And then a lot of clients, I will kind of just give them suggestions of what helps for me or what they could do. You know, I do have that therapeutic background. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying I give therapeutic advice, but I give tools, I would
Mm-hmm.
say, to like go to meet a goal that they have or help keep certain areas in their body balanced.
Hmm.
Because blockages in the chakras can cause ailments to your body, stomach issues, disease, things like that, which is a whole nother conversation. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It's interesting because like for starters, there's just no there's just no question that anybody listening to this has walked into a room and has felt the presence of the person that they're walking into a room with, whether that person was angry and you could just feel it, or that person was happy and you could just feel it, or whether that person, my dog Ruby has never barked at a single person. And one day we were walking through town, and this guy walked past us, looked pretty normal, maybe a little shady, but like just pretty normal
Yeah.
citizen of Chicago, whatever.
Hmm.
And she went nuts and was really protective of us, and I was like, that guy's a murderer. I don't know what
Yeah.
that is, but like if you're listening to this, odds are you may even know Ruby from the pictures or from real life, and like that is not a dog that barks at anybody.
Yeah.
And another thing is, I don't know if you've ever had this experience. Have you ever been working with somebody and just been super frustrated and like had it like bring like a real negative feel? Because I had an ex-girlfriend who went for a massage, and it doesn't matter, but she like the masseuse was like would work for a little while and then would be like "Ugh," like making noises and having emotions that a massage therapist typically doesn't have, and then like canceled the end of the appointment, was like, I just can't, your energy is too bad, I can't work with you, and like quit in the middle of a
Yeah.
massage. And at the time I remember, and I kind of still am like, what a flake, what a loser that they just need to just
Yeah.
finish the
Right.
massage. But I'm curious if you've ever had anything where like you went into it one way and you get in and you're like, this is really pretty intense.
Yeah, I have had that with Reiki only
Mm-hmm.
a couple times actually, where they were kind of blocked off or they weren't
Yeah.
really they
Yeah.
weren't really interested in it. You know,
Uh-huh.
you could tell, and I would be frustrated. I always go follow through with it and just do my best.
Mm-hmm.
But in my behaviorist job, I've had that where
Oh,
I've
sure.
walked into a house and I've been like, no.
Oh
And then
no.
I have a meeting with my boss about it. And I remember telling her, she's like, well, what's the reason why you can't take the client? And I'm like, I just have a really bad feeling. And she's like, I can't write a letter and be like, she has a really bad gut feeling and she can't take it. And I was like, fine, I'll do it. But something bad is going to happen. And I don't know who it's going to happen to, and sure as shit, I was right. I mean, it ended up not being a good case. There was DCS involved in all this stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling my boss, I told you so. But yeah, I've definitely had that a few times.
So what is a behaviorist for those at home?
For a behaviorist is somebody that works with people typically that have a developmental disability, or like an ADHD diagnosis, and some other psychological diagnoses.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you basically, if somebody has a behavior like an aggressive behavior, tantrums, outbursts, potty training, I even do. I've had people that like are, 7 years old and still not potty trained, that we go into the home and help with that. And we basically look at the environment, look at how everybody is responding to the behavior,
Mm-hmm.
and we modify it. So we write an intervention plan we do proactive intervention of like, these are things that you can do to prevent problem behavior. And then we have reactive intervention where these are things that you do if the behavior happens.
Mm.
Um, It's applied behavioral analysis. A lot of people know ABA. It's similar to that, but ABA, usually you go into a facility or you meet with, like, I would go into the home like once a week for a few hours. This is more, um, here's the plan for your environment. This is how you respond. And then this is how you decrease this problem behavior that you have.
Mm.
Um, Never a dull moment. It's very fun. I have ages like 5, and I think my oldest guy is 72. So it's all ages.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So, what are some of the things that you find, particularly parents? And by the way, this could be a whole not recorded 1 hour session with Donna and I about Lucy, right? But what are some things that you find parents like? Do you find yourself helping people see what they are doing that maybe is, contributing to some of this stuff? And if so, what are some common things that you see like that?
um, Typically it's parents not parenting,
Mm.
um, and kind of just handing over the iPad or having them watch TV and not really being more of a friend than a parent, or like not having that boundary. And then it's a lot of correcting how they're responding, because as human beings, instinctually, we have evolved into these people that are very reactive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if your kid does something that you don't want them to do, instead of walking over, blocking, disrupting, having them come over, you're probably going to say no, right? Because that's what most people do, or don't touch that, or stop it. Um, so it's really just kind of breaking the habits that we've created, and retraining a parent's brain to be more, this is actually what I always say: respond, don't react.
Mm.
So, and I also say, stop talking. You're talking too much. That's my biggest thing. But we, as parents, want to also talk about everything. So if you have a child that's a toddler that keeps um, opening a door that they shouldn't, um, what can we do to change the environment so they don't have access to that door?
Mm-hmm.
Or that maybe it's not so easy for them to open. Instead of taking them over to the door, smacking their hand, saying no, and then explaining all the reasons why they shouldn't open the door. It's really not about why, it's just fix your environment so that they
Mm-hmm.
can't keep doing that, and that's basically that's pretty much my job in a nutshell, is just fixing the environment so that it's conducive to the child.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I like that take on it. And it's interesting to sort of hear it from, what I would describe as a professional, right? The thing I've been talking with Donna about a little bit lately is how, her and I have found this wonderful equilibrium and harmony and balance, right?
Mhm.
And then you introduce an irrational third party.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden that can be really rocked at its core because, even this conversation, you are respectful and thoughtful and kind, and you're listening when I'm talking, and I'm respectful and thoughtful and kind, and I'm listening when you're talking. And what if there was just an asshole in a third box just going like, blah, blah, shut up, no, stop
Yeah.
it, right? Like, it would make this really challenging for us to
Yeah.
like exist and have this thoughtful kind of conversation. And so I like the idea of responding, not reacting, because one of the things that we try to do is two things that we've tried so far to do. And, Lucy's only 18 months. So, um, number one is like have a solution before the problem, because when the problem happens it's kind of too late, right? That's when tensions
Yeah.
are high. Might be in the middle of the night, might be in the middle of a car ride or in the middle of a store. And so trying to understand what we're going to do together as a team when this thing arises. And then number two, we try to focus on our input, not the outcome, because the outcome sort of is out of our hands at this point. And so
Right.
it's much more about like, well, this is what we agreed we're going to try.
Right.
And it
Right.
may very well fail, but the
Right.
failure is on either trying or not trying. It's not on the outcome, because the outcomes seem to be completely unpredictable at this point.
Right. And it's very important to be on the same page.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
parenting isn't just you're the dad and what you say goes. It's how is it going to work for both of you as parents? And you have to respond in the same way. Mom can't be hyperactive and yell, and then dad leave the room because he's mad every time that, I mean, really, that's how trauma happens with
Yeah.
kids. And that's
Yeah.
also, it's successful parenting is working as a team and being together as parents. And then this child comes and they just are added to your group. They're just part of the family, but mom and dad are still number one, always.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too, I have a lot of problems where I have clients that I've had for 7 years. I've never even met the dad.
Wow.
And, it's, well, how's dad responding? Well, he doesn't think that this works. It's like, well, that's why your kid is still doing A, B, and C.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that's another frustrating. It's kind of getting through there's a lot of mini battles and setting boundaries. And, I've had some people that haven't had any behavior improvement in 7 years because no one follows a plan, but that's okay. It is what it is. You follow it when you're ready. If it's going to be in 10 years when your kid's 18, whatever, it's, you got to do what you got to do. But it's also a lot of like me going there and listening to mom vent,
Mm-hmm.
and then they feel like the problem is fixed, so that honestly is what a lot of my job is, and that's okay. But it's just, I feel bad sometimes for the kids, but
So that brings to mind two thoughts. I'll ask them back to back if I can remember. Number one is, what do you do when it becomes apparent to you that somebody was raised in an environment where they just have no frame of reference for, a healthy parenting situation? Is there resources or recommendations you give to folks, or do you just sort of meet with them where they're at?
I always meet with them where they're at.
Okay.
And we developed this during COVID. Me and my boss and a couple of behaviorists developed this like Likert scale where like rating the top three things you want to fix. And then starting at number one, and then how enthusiastic do you feel about fixing this problem on a scale of 1 to 10? And then kind of seeing where they're at, and then being like, okay, well, if this is what you want to work on and you're feeling like you're at like a 7, like you're really feeling motivated, but some days maybe on the weekends you're not feeling up to it, then why don't you try to do this one step Monday through Friday and just do it one day a week? And then we'll just kind of start there sometimes. And sometimes they don't even engage in that, but they like the idea,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people, this is that back to this like instant gratification. A lot of people want to respond this way one time and then they want their kid to be perfect. But who in the world is perfect? Because I've never met a perfect person, And so it's like, yeah, they might, if for me, if you go from having 8 outbursts in 1 week to 7 after 6 months of following my behavior plan, that is success. But that's what we don't look at it like that. We like to focus on society. Once you have that label with a child and then they're the bad kid and you start nitpicking at things they do. And I ask that sometimes too. I'll ask like they'll be like, oh, they keep yelling because they want to watch TV. And I'm like, why can't they just watch TV for 5 minutes? Like, we got to pick our battles here. If they didn't have that diagnosis and they weren't bad and I wasn't here, would it really matter?
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit because I can tell you, if you don't know and you're listening, I spent 5 or 6 years in a behavior disorder school, from first grade to seventh grade, and so
Mm-hmm.
I was by far the youngest. It was K through 12, and there were definitely people that really belonged there, and maybe I was one of them. I don't think that I was. I was just ADD as heck. But
Yeah.
either way, I was never a violent kid or anything like that. But I was very disruptive when I was very young, kind of still. Um, but I do remember like people getting kind of harsh treatment or punishment or repercussions for things that you absolutely, if we weren't in this setting, that's just a normal kid being a normal kid. I remember
Right.
that vividly. Like what do you
Yeah.
mean? No, oh, I'm not paying attention for a few minutes and like and now I'm in trouble and in some timeout or whatever. It's like, listen, man, this is if we were just in regular school, this would be a nothing thing. But all of a sudden, I mean, it would be like if if somebody is dealing with I don't know, something difficult, anorexia, and isn't hungry right now. It's like,
Right. Right.
well, if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't think twice about you not wanting a second helping at Thanksgiving or whatever. I don't know. Not
Exactly.
to be insensitive or anything, but but
No, or
yeah,
even like an addict,
yeah,
if
right,
they
right,
come over and they seem like irritated, we're instantly going to go to they must have relapsed or they must
right.
have we
Or you pissed them off.
right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Put labels on these people and then that just becomes their identity.
Hmm.
And, I mean, there's been some times where I've been like, he just keeps tapping his pencil and it's so annoying. How can we fix that? And I'm like, leave the room. I
Yeah.
don't, like sometimes I
Yeah.
do give like very like, why are we talking about this? Like, I
Hmm.
think now you're getting to the point where he doesn't have the horrible outbursts anymore, he or she, where they're not having the tantrums, they're not throwing tables, they're not breaking things.
Hmm.
And then now you want to focus on these like minor things that you probably tap your foot. Like we all do these random
Yeah.
behaviors that probably annoy people all the time, but it's like mind blowing to me, but that's kind of my job. It's
Well,
like,
and it makes sense that once you tune somebody in to measuring things, that they become good at measuring things, right? And
right.
reporting back. The second question that I somehow miraculously held on to is as someone who, in a different way, in different elements of my life, have focused a lot on behavior change in my clients, in my peers, in my partners, in myself. What do you think behavior change, like lasting behavior change, comes from?
Like what it takes, where it comes
If you,
from,
yeah, maybe that was a little vague.
or
Like
like
if you,
staying.
when you think about the folks who've made the most lasting successful behavior change from,
Okay.
what you would call maybe pathological to like, problem to like maybe health, right? Um, what are some of the elements that come together to actually create an environment where behavior change is possible?
Oh, it's always the environment.
Yeah.
It's always the environment. So it could be something so small, like smaller, with like having a tantrum and recognizing that it's because staff, it's intensifying because staff is talking to them the entire time. Like, what's your problem? What's wrong? And then it doesn't get better. But maybe that staff got fired. And now all of a sudden it's all better. For
Mm.
something with what you do with helping entrepreneurs, um, you know, through businesses and stuff, it's seeing the result of like the work that they're putting in and realizing that the old way doesn't work anymore, maybe, and maybe
Yeah.
this new way of trying this one thing that they change, even if it's like answering emails at the same time every day and
Yeah.
making that a priority, and then not looking at your email for the rest of the day and just waiting until the next day, so then you have time for all these other things to build and grow, and then feeling good about it. It's like, so I think it's those two things. It's recognizing it's always environment, however it changes, whether it's positive, taken away, or adding,
Mm.
positive or negative. And then feeling good about the outcome and seeing that it works, seeing that putting in the work works. And I think I get that too with parents, trying it one time and seeing a result, then they're more motivated to do what was recommended. But it's getting them to the point of doing that one thing, I think, is the biggest obstacle for me sometimes. And
Yeah,
I'm
I think to that point, I think you're dead on with those two. And in case you don't know, I owned a gym, so I was helping people lose weight and get in shape as well. So it's even more
Oh,
than just the entrepreneurial stuff. Yeah,
yeah,
so same thing. But the thing that's really powerful to get people to take that first step usually is social proof. So somebody they know who made a
yeah,
huge change that way. And by the way, if you're a parent and you're struggling with a child and somebody you know and respect goes, "Hey, you got to call Jess. She changed our life at our house." You better believe it's going to be a lot easier to pick up the phone
yeah,
if you
definitely.
have sort of that. I think we're as tribal beings, we're like sort of tuned to be like, hey, who makes the best pies? Like, oh, they make the best pies. I'm
Yeah,
buying that pie. Like, you know,
yeah.
yeah. Cool. Okay. And so next question. Um, talk to me about what it was like being diagnosed with and then fighting cancer.
All right. So I do self breast exams and I found a lump and I actually sat on it for like a little bit because I was thinking it was not breast cancer because I was 36.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and went to the doctor and actually she was didn't feel the lump, so she was kind of gaslighting me and I was like, can you just get the mammogram, like can we just get it? She's like, well, I don't know if your insurance will pay for it because your age, da, da, da. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't even care. Got it. Ended up
Good for you.
having breast cancer. Yeah. um and it was like, I think the one thing that I was mad about the most is in that moment, and this is so silly, but in that moment, I just switched jujitsu gyms. And I was like, I literally just got situated in a new home. And now my life has to pause,
Mm-hmm.
because I competed in January. I like to compete jujitsu. I was like, that was the first thing I thought of, which is so crazy, silly. Like I'm thinking about but that's my self care. So, so
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, what am I going to do without my self care? Um, and I just went through it. I didn't really tell anybody, and then got my biopsy. They confirmed it was cancer. I had like 4 spots. They were only able to biopsy my mass that was just under 2 centimeters. And then I had 3 other spots, and they weren't able to get it. They ended up getting the tissue around it biopsy. So they wanted me to go back for another biopsy. And I don't know if you've ever had anybody in your life that has had cancer, but every time you go to the doctor, it's like something new. So what they told you, on Tuesday, when you go back on Monday, you're going to hear something different. It's like ever changing after you get a lab work or a test. So um, I ended up meeting with surgeons and I decided to get a single mastectomy because the biopsy was super traumatizing and it was painful and it was uncomfortable. So I decided on a mastectomy. And my friend ended up having a 2-week plan of benefit for me because I was going to be out of work. And at the same time, my husband's business was closing. And the same week that I found out I had cancer, that was happening. So not only was I not going to be working and I didn't get paid while I was off, he was losing his income. So she did a benefit for me. And um, that's when it started hitting me. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, like all these people showed up that I haven't heard from in forever. And um, then I got my mastectomy and I think I just recently said this to somebody actually, like, I think the hardest thing having cancer and having to get surgery was everyone's world kept moving, but
Mm-hmm.
mine stopped to treat cancer. And I didn't get to do all the things that I like to do. I had to stop tie dyeing. I couldn't go to my job because I had to heal. And then in that moment, I realized, like, okay, I can sit here and feel sorry for myself and be pissed off, like, why me? Or I can take this as a learning experience. So I took it as a learning experience and a healing experience. And it made me realize that I do way too much. Imagine that, right? That I say yes too much. And that it made me recognize like what was important. for me and who was important for me.
Mm.
And it taught me boundaries. And I took that 6 months of healing my body and I became a boundary fool. Like, so I ended up getting really lucky where I didn't need radiation because I got the mastectomy. And in between my, so when you get I don't know if you're familiar with getting a mastectomy, but when you get a mastectomy, they put an expander in you. So it's this like plastic prosthetic that's
Okay.
like in the shape of like, a breast, I guess.
Sure.
And it's hard. So they put that to allow the tissue around you to heal.
Mm.
And then after a few months of healing, they inject that with saline to stretch the skin and the muscle. And then they replace it with a permanent prosthesis, like an implant, like
Okay.
a silicone implant. Some people can get like parts of their thigh put on and stuff like that. I didn't have that option because my BMI was too low.
Mhm.
But so in between that time of healing, I was able to go back to Jiu Jitsu, even though my doctor was like, I don't like this. I was like, I'm still going to do it. And so that was helpful. But during that time, I just really took it to like heal. I took it as a sign from the universe that I'm doing too much. So I kind of was able to focus on Millie Byrd also during that time where, when you're going and tie-dyeing and doing all these markets, I never had time to like structure my business the way that it should be. So I took that as an opportunity to focus on that and put my logo on things and quit doing customs for people because it was stressing me out.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm here. I tried to be very positive during it. Everyone thought I was crazy because I kept positive, but
Yeah.
um, everybody says that the most important thing is your mind. And so I made sure that I wasn't hard on myself for getting cancer. It wasn't my fault.
Was there any sense of feeling supported by a large group of people who gather around you versus being alone going through this?
Was there
Like,
answer?
did you have more of a sense, like did you feel your community of people that love you gathering around you,
Oh,
or did you feel ultimately that it was just you that has to face this?
just me. I didn't.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of people showed up, but it was very surface. It was like my cancer made them uncomfortable. So they needed to say what they needed to say to me to comfort themselves. Like it was never about me having cancer for those people. Um, and, I mean, I had like my parents, my husband, and my best friend, the one that did the benefit for me, a few close friends that helped me and were there who came to help around the house. I couldn't do anything. Checked in on Dennis to see if he needed anything. But the large group of people that, maybe some people that I had a falling out with the year before that showed up to send me gifts or do things for me. That was never about me, but it took up until my mastectomy and then that 6 weeks of not being able to do anything. Those people weren't there. Those people that were like, oh my gosh, so sad. And what can I do for you? Can I bring you food? Can I do this? It felt more alone for sure.
Do you feel like you have a changed relationship with yourself coming out of this?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Very much so. Um, I think that this was the most traumatic thing that has ever happened to me and so far in my life. But I also think that I know myself a little bit more. I can recognize, I don't know if you're from like when, for me, what I was last year or the years before was somebody would ask me to do something and I would say yes instantly. And then the time would come and I wasn't feeling it. Like I was like, why did I overcommit? I have all these things to do. And then I would still do it. And I realized in that break that, wow, I like literally poured from an empty cup all the time. I would pour, and then I would have nothing to drink. Like, and it took that traumatic thing for me to recognize that. And actually the first thing that I did when I got diagnosed was I went into therapy because I was like, if I don't have jujitsu, I need somebody to talk to that doesn't know me because jujitsu is my therapy. I don't know about you, but it's definitely
Oh, we're getting there. We'll get there.
um so that person that was my therapist during that time was very helpful in me looking out and recognizing that this doesn't define me, and this is just part of my story, and it's part of what makes me who I am today, and it's okay to talk about it. And I think that a lot of people that have in the breast cancer community, it's very normalized. We have a whole month dedicated to breast cancer, and everyone's going to be like, oh, it's this stage, it's early, it's this. It's like, I lost my breast, like that's very traumatic. So I didn't appreciate a lot of the minimizing of it also because it's my experience and you can't possibly understand what I'm going through, just like I could never understand what you would go through. That's why I would just listen to what you have to say about your story. And so for me, it was like a very lonely healing process, and I am definitely not the same person. And I think a lot of people in my life recognize that, and they've kind of stepped a little bit. I've drifted apart from a lot of people because of that. But that's okay, but a year ago, Jess would have been really sad about that, but now I'm like, I'm doing things. So ride with me or fall back, you know?
It's funny because whether you know it or not, you're describing like a very attractive character. Is somebody who shows up and gives what they can and is very clear and polite about what they don't want to give or can't give. And
Yeah.
this is the trope of the guy in the motorcycle jacket. This is the artist who works on their own terms and then sells their paintings for millions of dollars. I mean, this is what a
Right.
healthy person behaves like. So the question would be, if you could try to give this gift to somebody who doesn't have a life-threatening disease, is that possible? And if so, like, what would you tell that person that maybe is behaving in that way, that's pouring out of an empty cup, and hopefully isn't waiting on a life-threatening illness? What would
Right.
you tell that person to hopefully, the reason for any media, right, whether it's a book or a podcast or a song, is to try and give somebody your life experience without them having to live your life. And so what would you tell that person?
Yeah, I think it's important to just recognize, energy exchange. So if you're constantly giving and that person isn't filling your cup or fulfilling you or that
Mm.
thing, it doesn't even have to be a person. I mean, this experience made me question my being a social worker, and then I realized, no, I just need better boundaries and I can do that. It's rewriting the script to make yourself happy. So if you're constantly giving and filling up everybody else's cup at the party before, and then you end up not being able to have a drink, you need to reevaluate the people that you're surrounding yourself with and the things that you're doing, because that is not the key to happiness. I promise
Mm.
you. It is not the key to happiness.
Yeah, I think that was really well said. So, a couple of quick questions.
Okay.
Do you have a history of violence?
No.
Do you have a history of outrageous outbursts of violent rage?
No.
Do you enjoy the idea of hurting other people?
Do I enjoy the idea? No.
Okay. Why? So then from that perspective, not mine, I look like me.
Okay.
From that perspective, why jujitsu?
Oh, why not?
Of
That's
course,
the
but you got to explain it for them.
uh, there is something about um challenging yourself, stepping on a mat, and every single thing that happened before you got there doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Nobody cares what you do for a living, how many friends you have, how big your house is. You go there and you're all there to learn one thing, and that's how to defend yourself. And then it's not easy. And everyone's at a different level. And every single time you step on that mat, you're challenging yourself. And every time you step on the mat, what you learned the day before, you might not remember, and you're relearning and challenging yourself. It's never a dull moment. And you're just using parts of your body and your mind that you'll never get that anywhere else. It's never. And so I picked it to defend myself. And I'm somebody that um, has some trauma in my past. And that for me was empowering. And so
Hmm.
that's why I started doing it. And then I just obsessed over it. I love it.
Why do you think? Uh, so when I, excuse me, when I think of mindfulness, it's two different directions, but for the same thing. Meditation, yoga, floating, walking and thinking deeply, fighting, CrossFit, climbing a rock, uh, uh, whatever, surfing, something like either very active that just blanks my mind, or
Mhm.
very passive. Maybe you could speak to that a little bit, because it seems like you live in both of those worlds.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely used to meditate and stuff. Now I just go for a walk. I'm all about nature. But I mean, even if I'm having a bad day and I'm really crabby, my husband will even be like, I don't know if your wife says this to you, but he'll be like, you need to go to jujitsu, you know? And every time I walk out that door, he says, learn to kill. That's what he always says. And so for me, it's it's therapy, and it's empowering. And I think those are, as a female, those are two very grounding things. Um, I can I can because of jujitsu, I can confidently go to target by myself.
Mm-hmm.
Not because I think that I'm a beast and can like defend myself. If someone's bigger than me, the reality is they could probably maybe overpower me, but I'm confident. So I'm not scared to be alone. Um, I can go hiking by myself. I can do things. So I think that jujitsu is just the answer to all the world's problems. We all need jujitsu.
You know, you say that as a joke, but it's hard for me to imagine people going to war if they were spending time every single day themselves in what
Um,
is a fight for your life, right? I mean, even if, and there's so much love in it too, because people are consciously not killing you or breaking your arms or dislocating your shoulders or breaking your legs or whatever.
well, because they're preparing you
Right.
for the
Yeah.
world, you know?
But also, like, I think there is something to be said about divorcing fear and anger from violence and physicality. And it's just interesting to hear you talk about that. And so interesting. What do you think the resistance is? I mean, thank God there's people out there like Joe Rogan and other people who have big platforms that shout it from the rooftops. So I think jujitsu has had a huge benefit of that. Also, MMA and things like that have
Yeah.
pointed at jujitsu. Um, what do you what do you think the resistance is? Why do people think it's not for them?
Well, I think too, a lot of people don't understand what it is.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know about you, but when I tell people I do jujitsu, they're like karate, you
Right.
know, wrestling. They don't get it. Um, but also for females, I can speak on the masculinity, you know, walking into a male dominated place and everybody's just doing their thing and you have no clue about anything. It's scary. So I remember walking, I've been doing jiu-jitsu for a year and a half. I switched gyms. I walk into the gym I go to with you, and I was terrified. And I still knew how to do jiu-jitsu and I
Yeah.
understood it, but it was scary because I'm thinking, who's going to roll with me? What if no one wants to be my partner? What's going to happen? It's that, like, what's the word? Rejection.
Yeah.
Uh, um, but I think the biggest thing is that people don't just don't understand it. They just don't under.
And another thing is it's grappling, so you're up close and personal, and you're in a place where it's mostly men. You know, um, how much did that close physical contact, as someone who's obviously not coming to this for romance or anything like that.
Right.
Because, and by the way, I'm addressing this because I know that if my wife were here, she would be like, "Yeah, but it seems sexual," and so,
Oh
so,
yeah, no,
so
it's
I'm just
not.
going to add, like, it definitely doesn't feel that way. But maybe if you could speak a little bit to
No.
that. So, like, right now, someone is listening to this who's been thinking about trying the jiu-jitsu, but the two things that probably are in their mind are, number one, it's a bunch of big, strong, sweaty guys, and they're going to kill me, or number two, I'm not comfortable being up close and personal with, somebody that I don't know that well or that is, male or whatever.
Yeah, it's not sexual, and it's not, for me, it's never been uncomfortable because I'm here to do the same thing that that person that I'm rolling with is.
Hmm.
So it's like an understanding, and we both want to learn. Um, I have had moments where, like, I was muscled or things like that by a guy in my old gym, but I just say tap.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I don't want to roll with you anymore,
What a
you
dope.
know? Yeah, I mean, and that's okay. But um but I didn't even know I could really do that. My husband told me I could do that, and then I was like, "Oh, cool. I could just say tap." I thought I had to roll with whoever rolled with me. Um so it's kind of a learning curve, which is scary, I guess, going into it, but it's by no means sexual, or I've never felt uncomfortable. I've only felt uncomfortable, and I addressed it right away. And that person was in the wrong. And that's very far and few um to come across, because
Hmm.
I've bounced. I've gone to other gyms and done open mat, and I have always felt like everybody is always open arms, welcoming, and it's like, because it's a weird sport. It's a weird sport to get into, and it's something that you don't understand until you do it. And then when you do it, you don't want to stop. And then those people that are part of your gym are become your family. I mean, even if you don't know them and you know that you go to the same gym, they're your people,
Hmm.
which is something you can't find that in a lot of places.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir on that one for sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you enjoy competing. Tell me what that experience is like, and why you continue to go back to do it.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Um, and that's why I like it.
Yeah.
um, I it was my I've only competed one time, and but I had four matches, and I had just gotten over the flu. So I was like 2 days post flu feeling better. And I was like, you know what? I committed. I'm still going to do it. And I did it. And I didn't do my best. I had a big adrenaline dump. Um, but it was a cool learning curve for me. And I'm sure you already can tell by everything that we've talked about. I like to challenge myself, and I like to
Mhm.
put myself in situations to work through. And so competing was like that for me. Um, and it was interesting to go against, like, other people and the way that they do jujitsu, because that showed me that I was like needed to be a little bit more aggressive. I'm kind of like a hippie when I roll
Mhm.
jujitsu. And I like to be in jujitsu. I like to be in uncomfortable positions because I like to use my mind and my body to get out of those positions. And so I've just recently talked to someone that goes to our gym about this. I've made that like almost a habit. So been working through that. Yeah. It's easy. I like to challenge myself. So I'm like, oh, good. Someone's got my back and about to choke me. Like, let me shimmy out of this and try to figure out ways to get out of it. Cause that's how my brain works. But,
Yeah.
um, so competing was cool. Have you competed?
I have once.
Okay.
And
Cool.
it's funny. I did well. I lost. I lost twice. I lost in a guy heel hooked me really quickly in an open weight nogi tournament, and the very like it was 9:09, and the thing started at 9. And then I
Wow.
lost to a guy that was really really big, but I won I think three. It was good. It was great. But what I will say is very much aligned with you. I don't know if I would describe it as hippie, but I actually like the fellowship and brotherhood and sisterhood and all that stuff more
Yeah.
than the competition end of it. And I've always been a competitive person, but it's almost like I'd rather beat my friends
Yeah.
because I feel like there's no anger there. I don't know. And then there's
Yeah.
no anger in the competition part either. It's just, and maybe it's an age thing. I've competed a lot in different things over the course of my life. And like now I'm much more, I think of myself as being like my accountability is to the training partners that are out there to go compete. And so, but I also am a guard player. I also put myself in tough positions. I almost never am on top unless I get there from the bottom. So
Yes.
it's interesting
Yeah.
hearing you say
Same.
that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Miguel, by the way, shout out to Miguel Torres, the owner of our gym, Torres Martial Arts here in
Yeah.
Hobart,
Awesome.
Indiana. Going to be interviewing him next week, I think, to get his story,
That's
which I'm really excited about. Um, so you do a lot of different things. You're incredibly interesting and very capable. Um, First, small question is, do you think that would you rather make a small impact across a lot of different pathways, or would you rather at some point focus on one thing that could be a really big lasting impact on the world?
I would say small impact among different places and things. Definitely.
How much do you even care what the world thinks of you outside of your immediate impact, like your immediate family and friends?
Um, I don't really think I care that much. I
Mm.
think that even in my social work field of hearing how I helped somebody do something, I could think of one particular, these kids, I still have a relationship 8 years ago. They got removed from the really bad situation, great foster home, still have a relationship with them. They got adopted. Um, the foster mom will constantly tag me and update on Facebook and stuff. And it's like so cool to see. And I was a part of that, but like, look how cool they are. Look how awesome they're doing. Is it really about that little thing that I did? It's not, but
So then what if it's not outside glory or success or whatever you would describe that as, what is it then that motivates you to keep going in so many different directions?
um, me,
Yeah.
my, myself, how I feel, what makes me happy, what makes me content.
Do you ever think about your life as like you writing the book of your life as you do it?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
What is the theme of that book?
Oh, colorful happiness.
Resolve. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. Okay. I think that does it for that
Okay.
part. So there's two questions that I ask every guest that comes on the show, and I'd like to ask you those two questions now. Are you ready, Jess?
I am ready.
Okay, great. Number one, and I guess we'll talk primarily about Millie Byrd here, which unless you own, in whatever business you own, uh, if you were given access to unlimited financial capital, how would you profitably grow your current businesses?
Oh, wow. That's a deep question, Jason. If I was giving, how would I, like, what would I use the money for to
Yeah, if I
profit?
wrote you a blank check, but it had to be profitable, you can't just waste it. If I wrote you a blank check for an unlimited amount of money, how would you profitably grow the impact of Millie Bird or the Reiki practice, whatever it is that you want to grow?
Okay. I would probably travel in a tie-dye mobile bus and do all the festivals.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. Great
Yeah.
answer. The second question is, if you had to give up everything that you've ever done professionally and start something totally new that you've never done before, what do you think that might be?
Totally new that I've never done before. I think I would open up a gluten-free shop.
That's cool. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
What is it about gluten free?
Because I'm gluten-free and it's really hard to find like gluten-free, like you can go to a bakery and get homemade cupcakes and breads, but finding gluten-free isn't easy
Hmm.
to come by in this area.
Yeah,
And
Northwest Indiana, shout out.
yeah, and I found a gluten-free bread or a sourdough bread person. He was trying to gaslight me into thinking sourdough was gluten-free, and it was like, this is my life.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I would definitely, I love to cook. I love to cook. It's like a therapeutic, like I look forward to making dinner and planning and all that. So I
Mm.
would just do that, have a little
Well,
restaurant or feed the
yeah.
homeless. I don't know.
Well, I would like to be the first to encourage you that if you haven't already planned on actually writing the book of your life, that you should totally do that. I think many people would find it to be very interesting and encouraging and empowering. Number two, if anybody is still listening to this, then they must be a big fan of you. So how can they get a hold of you, Jess?
I am on social media at Millie Byrd _ on Instagram and then also Facebook.
And how do you spell Millie Bird?
MILLIEBYRD _
Awesome. And all of Jess's contact information will be linked at the show notes below this if you're listening or watching. So thank you so much, Jess, for your time. And thank
Thank
you for the
you.
listeners to stick around.
I had a
Have a,
blast.
oh,
Thank
this was great, wasn't it?
you. Yeah.
All right.